It was intended to be a moment of healing, a moment to work towards, finally, smoothing over the lingering tension and conflict. Kody Brown, the patriarch of the Brown family and one who has been with them for many years, entered with his apology and his intentions of smoothing over his conflicts with Christine and David. However, events took a surprising turn. What began as merely "I'm sorry" escalated to one of the most awkward and tense-filled confrontations in sister wives history. The Brown family saga has been unfolding before the fans' eyes for several years now. Kody, Christine, and David's feud had long been known to everyone. But with time, their differences in leadership, financial decisions, and personal issues had widened a divide between them. One of Kody's only openly critical spouses, Christine, had been fed up with Kody's leadership qualities, while David, in his capacity as Christine's protector, was unafraid to speak his mind, said the source. As the cameras began to record for this highly anticipated installment, Kody attempted to take a humble stance. He entered the room slowly, slumped over, hoping that this would finally convince Christine and David that he understands the hurt he has inflicted on the family. For a moment, the audience might have believed that this would be the turning point, where the family could finally begin the process of mending. However, the moment Kody opened his mouth, the audience knew that this apology was bound to fail. "I'd like to say that I'm sorry," Kody started hesitantly. "I know that I have hurt you, Christine, and that this is certainly not what I had planned. I would like for us to move into the—" These were words that hung in the air, weighed down and almost fragile. Christine's face changed almost instantly. Her eyes squinted and her jaw angled in anger. David leaned in, his arms crossed, indicating he wasn't going to let this pass. The air was thick with emotion, and all of this was captured on camera. The sighs, the raised eyebrows, and sharp little gestures, of which so much was being left unsaid. It was Christine who spoke first, breaking the uncomfortable silence. "Sorry? Kody, sorry is not the half of it. It's actions, not words. You've said things like that before, but it never changes." David hastens to follow, his words harsh and unswerving. "We're sick of apologies that mean nothing and come to nothings. We see you making the same mistakes over and over again, and expect us to forgive and forget?" Kody struggled to defend himself. But every phrase that came out of his mouth made things worse. The apology that was meant to cover up past conflicts ended up emphasizing them instead. The tension was palpable enough that fans watching from home felt it immediately. Before long, reactions began pouring in on social media, and videos of what transpired between Kody and his siblings were trending. Some fans felt sorry for Kody and realized that dealing with such a family was overwhelming. Others supported Christine and David for their courage. However, in order to comprehend the full magnitude of the explosive nature of this apology, it's necessary to examine the history involved in the events. The Brown family had their fair share of dramatic moments. This incident had been festering for a very long time. Christine had been vocal about her displeasure in connection with the way she had been feeling about the way Kody had been handling the. David always had his own place in front of Christine. However, his dissatisfaction had also increased in connection with the many mishaps of Kody. The days prior to this standoff had led to a boiling point. Privately, discussions had turned into arguments. Backstage reports indicated that Christine and David were more than willing to put Kody in his place once and for all. When Kody finally came to talk to them about his apology, maybe he assumed he had a lifeline, some way to rectify a breach of trust. But Christine and David had every intention of proving him wrong. As Kody continued, he tried to defend himself, stumbling through his explanations. I thought I was doing what was best for all of us. I didn't mean to hurt anyone. I just want us to be happy together." But the room wasn't having it. Christine's biting reply crushed any attempt at a reconciliation. "Happy? Kody, we've been through this before. You say all the right things, but never anything ever happens." Finished with apologies that mean nothing. David leaned forward and poured oil onto the flames. "You can't just expect us to forget everything and then just move on. We have to see change and not just hear all of these same old words." The room was electric, full of tension and emotional buildup. Every word, every look, every move was accentuated by the cameras, capturing the full drama of what was happening. There was a shift in Kody's expression from hope to frustration as he saw his words falling flat. His carefully designed, rehearsed, and believed apology attempt was a complete disaster. Of course, the internet community responded immediately. Videos of Christine and David standing up to Kody went viral. Comments rolled in, lauding the pair for being strong enough to take a stand and call out Kody's continued inability to follow through on his promises. There were memes, takes, and heated forums on all of social media. This was now a highlight reel moment for many members of the audience, a moment to remember in Sister Wives lore. A reflection of just how much emotion and depth there is within a family under constant observation. What made this showdown so compelling was more than just the drama. It was reality. Unlike many other moments on reality television that are crafted for entertainment purposes, this confrontation was real. The feelings were raw. The repercussions were steep. And the drama was real. This failed apology was but a reflection of many years' worth of unresolved matters reflected back. It was apparent that nothing would ever be the same as the episode came to a close. This was because the narrative had been taken over by the likes of Christine and David, who had finally been able to establish their boundaries and call the other individuals accountable for their actions. However, Kody was now left with the reality that his words were no longer enough. As the credits rolled, the fans were left shocked, in awe, and looking forward. Shocked from the intense display that had just unfolded, in awe of the bravery that was being demonstrated by both Christine and David, and looking forward to what was going to go down next. Was Kody going to take the initiative and mend his ways? Or was another showdown on the horizon? There was no doubt that this was one of the most intense displays that the fans of Sister Wives had ever been treated to. This episode brought more than just entertainment. It brought a message of accountability and communication that transcends forgiveness. That words alone can't convey what actions can best be seen. By looking at the scenes involving Christine and David, it was an edge-of-the-seat moment for the viewers, and portrayed all too well the true feelings of the Brown family, and how sometimes apologies just won't do within an immediate family. The cameras were there to record every bit of it, every pause, every sigh, and in doing that, they documented one of the most unforgettable events in Sister Wives history. It's still being talked about in fan circles. Every word, every gesture analyzed. This isn't just a drama-filled story of a very unusual family. It's a teachable moment on holding people accountable, communication, and consequences of making repeated errors. It all began with an apology that miserably backfired. The Browns had a family dynamic problem. This didn't happen overnight. This took years to build. Prior to this epic showdown between Kody and his 4 plural spouses, there had been a number of challenges on Sister Wives. To put Kody's apology in perspective, it's necessary to consider these conflicts. My sister, Jen Jessup, says, Christine has always been a straight shooter. She has never been a spouse who has been diplomatic about what's on the other foot. She has never held back. She's been adamant about what's not okay, what's not working. Because again, the other women have been more private about their disappointments. Christine has been vocal all along. Words were important, but actions were even more important. She saw the same things repeating themselves, the same promises being made that were not kept. There was a lack of accountability, and the lack of accountability was a problem for Christine. David, who is the brother-in-law to these women, and also a strong ally to his wife, Christine, is also outspoken about his views on Christina's situation. David is a great influence on Christina because he always defends her every time he feels she is being violated by her husbands. However, David's influence on Christina sometimes manifests itself as a challenge to Kody because he is unwilling to change or hear anything. Weeks before the infamous apology episode, tension had reached a boiling point. Kody had made too many personal and direct choices that affected Christine, from financial to family planning conversations, without considering and including Jerry enough. Each choice, no matter how minuscule or unimportant, continued to erode their trust between them. David recognized what had been transpiring and brought them to Kody's attention, warning him that if changes were not implemented, they would surely lead to conflict. Meanwhile, Christine was getting tired of the never-ending cycle. She was wanting recognition, understanding, and change instead of empty promises. The cycle was always the same. Kody made a decision, and Christine was upset about it. David had to step in, and then Kody apologized for everything. Nevertheless, the same problems kept popping back up again and again after weeks. Both Christine and David felt that they had not been heard. The cameras began to roll on the day of the apology, and the tension in the room could have been cut with a knife. Christine and David knew exactly why Kody had asked them to join him. The family had been living under constant observation after all these years of being on cable and documenting all of their battles. They knew all too well that they had reached another critical point. Kody, on the other hand, was convinced that he was well prepared with the best plan. Kody practiced his words of apology, aiming for a balance between humility and firmness. He knew that, on one hand, he was walking into a room laden with the history of his family, but on the other hand, he was confident enough to think that a sincere apology could turn the balance in his favor. "I want to say I'm sorry," he intended to begin, but words alone weren't going to be enough. There were just so many things that Christine needed to understand, and David's nurturing side wasn't about to budge 1 inch. No sooner had Kody begun to talk than the pent-up energies of 6 agonizing months spilled across the screen. There was more than just an apology taking place here. The audience who watched the episode of the show actually got to view much more than a simple dialogue. Christine's reaction began the moment Kody opened his mouth. The displeasure, frustration, and guardedness in her eyes revealed the story of a woman who had consistently been left disillusioned and had had enough of the excuses. David's nonverbal communication also mirrored hers. His arms were crossed. His leaning forward posture indicated his unswerving attention. The very essence of the scene lay in the anticipation of confronting the unmet tensions of the past. To appreciate the importance here, let's take a look at the family dynamics that play out and how this impacts the family's emotional and practical needs. Emotions and choices become complexly intertwined within the polygamy that embodies the Browns' family lifestyle. Kody was the father, and therefore the provider for the whole family. However, this is accompanied by the pressure that comes with the responsibility. Each woman had something different that she wanted and achieved. Just because Christine was dissatisfied with something that happened once doesn't mean that she isn't right. It is a pattern that keeps being repeated, being neglected and ignored. David's involvement is another complex element. David does not function like other commentators who perceive just Kody and Christine as key characters. For David to intervene is to show that when Christine's demands are disregarded or ignored, he is there to ensure that there are repercussions. David's involvement in this dispute brought home to Kody that he could neither apologize for something and walk away. He had to pay the price for such actions. Days leading up to this episode saw hints of tension starting to spread online. Fans wondered what might go down, with videos surfacing containing past blow-ups, passionate debates, and flashes of tension. The build-up to this specific confrontation was electric. It was known that Kody had the apology, but nobody knew exactly how explosive this confrontation would turn out to be. In fact, the lead-up to this confrontation wasn't just emotional, it was psychological. Kody came into this room thinking that there would be an open ear and possibly forgiveness. However, it was apparent that Christine and David had already mentally toughened themselves up against empty apologies. They had practiced, in their own minds, just what kind of lines they were going to have to draw, and what things they ought to say. Kody's entry into the room was choreographed, with his appearance being staged for the cameras. But the true drama was what occurred spontaneously. The squints, the pauses, the tensions were all true. The gaze of Christine followed each word, each shift in body position, each suggestion of falsity. David's reactions were equally attentive, his features communicating his own frustration and longing for confrontation. Kody, believing he was about to walk into the arms of reconciliation, was about to walk into a minefield. The consequences could not be more serious. An apology in this situation was more than a dialogue of simple apologies. It involved many aspects of trust, credibility, and respect. Christine and David's apology was more of a reaction to past grievances, but also an assertion of their independence within a familial setup. All of this happening in front of our eyes meant that we realized rather quickly that the history and reality between Kody, Christine, and David were leading to perhaps the most dramatic event to ever go down in Sister Wives history. You could almost feel the intensity in the air, even before they started saying their first words. But when the cameras were finally able to record an act of apologetic engagement in the following episode, what viewers could expect to see was not only an exchange, but the culmination of an accumulation of issues that had been left unresolved for months, even years. It was this which made Kody's apologetic endeavor not only be completely ineffective, but end up blowing up in his face, putting him back into a desperate attempt to restore his composure in front of Christine and David, who were now in control. Ultimately, the drama was more than just about the apology. It was the culmination of the trust that had been built over the years and the letdowns that had occurred. It was the dynamics that were unfolding between the family members that were complex and difficult to understand. This was the drama that had been building for so long that the audience could feel the weight that was being pushed through the apology that was waiting to be delivered. However, this build-up not only entertained, enlightened audiences on the complexities of the Brown family dynamic, demonstrating that in every exciting moment on Sister Wives, there's a complex system of relationships, feelings, and unresolved conflicts, driving these encounters to be simply indelible. And when this moment arrived, audiences were ready for it, waiting for it, hooked on what was to come. This is it. The moment of truth finally arrived. Kody Brown, father of the Brown family, took a deep breath and started his hope-to-be apologetic speech to Christine and David. This scene is all about capturing every single moment for the cameras, from their expressions to the slightest movement of their bodies. In this instant, all of them were waiting for what would happen next. The whole family, as well as viewers at home, were all waiting for this to happen. "I want to say I'm sorry," Kody started, his voice trembling ever so slightly with nerves and hopes. "I know I've hurt you, Christine, and I never wanted anything to go down like this. I just want us to move forward," he said. On paper, it could have appeared to be a genuine apology. However, people who knew the Browns, especially Christine and David, knew that this interaction held much deeper meaning than just mere words. Kody had made apologies in the past, only to go back to his ways again and again. Christine was tired of his empty promises of change, and David had become quite defensive about it all, claiming that without meaningful consequences, words just didn't matter. Christine's facial expression changed almost instantaneously. The softening of her eyes in response to Kody's initial words turned to hardness. She made it known through a mix of frustration, disbelief, and exasperation. David, who stood present in the room in a standing and/or seated position, reflected these emotions, not with his arms crossed, a sharp gaze in his eyes, an air that exuded a readiness in him to call Kody on these positions. "Sorry?" Christine's voice sliced through the silence. "Kody, sorry begins to not even touch the surface of what I'm talking about. You say this kind of thing, but your follow-through has never followed your words, not for months, not for years." David leaned in to encourage her. "We don't ask for an empty apology. We ask for accountability. We ask for change. You can't just say all the right things and think we'll forget all of what's transpired. This isn't how this works." Kody's shoulders drooped slightly. The effect of their words registered. He tried to defend himself, but every explanation only led to more trouble. I was thinking, I was doing what was best for all of us," he stammered. "I didn't mean to hurt anyone. I just wanted us to be happy together." Happy? This question was enough for the whole room to know that the UA was not buying that argument. Kody, with her cold and pleading gaze. "Happy? This isn't about what you think is best for us. This is what we require, and how your needs affect us, because you can't be happy when you've had your trust broken, time and time again." David's voice became more passionate. "We are finished with the excuses. We are finished with the apologies, which may be very sweet-sounding, but do not come with changes. You must show us that you understand the effects of your actions and not just tell it to us." Each word, each look, each body shift heightened the drama. Kody's misguided apology was an act that was disappointing on so many levels, not the least of which was embarrassing. Members of the audience were watching in stunned surprise as the male head of the family fought to take back control of something that was completely slipping past his grasp. Social media blew up almost instantly. Members of the audience were debating. Was Kody truly remorseful for his behavior? Or was this just another's iteration of this same pattern that was certain to continue? Some were in awe of the bravery that both Christine and David showed, while others sympathized with Kody. The tension in the room heightened further when Christine decided to stand her ground, indicating to Kody and everyone else in the room that she was not ready to settle for some empty words. "Kody, this isn't a game of save face, okay? This isn't about keeping appearances for the benefit of the network and the cameras. This is life, and life has repercussions. We need more than just words, and you've always failed to deliver. It's not just about you feeling better after you say sorry," added David forcefully. "It's about trusting that has been repeatedly shattered. Trust isn't regained overnight. Trust is earned by actions and attitudes of behavior. And honestly, Kody, we just don't see that right now," he said directly to Kody. Kody's face changed from one of hope to one of frustration. He tried once again to defend his actions. "I've always tried to do what was right for the family," he said. "I didn't mean to hurt anyone. I just—" Christine cut sharply. "Intent doesn't negate impact. You might mean well, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're right. You need to realize what your intentions are doing to us, how your actions are destroying our trust, our sense of being heard. The apology isn't enough." David's eyes never left his face. "You've had endless opportunities to show what you're capable of, Kody, and yet, again and again, we find ourselves right back where we started. This is more than just uncomfortable. It's painful. Something is obviously faulty. Because every time it seems like it might play out differently, it doesn't until you manage to fix it. The cameras showed every aspect of what transpired in that confrontation. The tension in the air, the unspoken feelings, and the clash of personalities. For the viewers, it was a fascinating process. For Kody, it was an awakening that made him confront realities that made him humble. The anticipated healing that was supposed to transpire through an apology was instead an exposure of wounds that were deep and raw. As all this was going on, Kody tries to salvage the situation. I just want to make things right. Please, Christine, David, I don't want this to tear the family apart, he pleaded. Christine's gaze was direct and biting. Kody, this isn't a matter of begging or pleading. It's a matter of proving you can treat us with respect and listen to us and show us in your actions that you care. Not just tell us. We've been here before, and we are not going to be kept kowtowed by the same old apologies again. David had the final word when he said, if you really want to correct the situation, it's going to take more than that. It's going to take action, accountability, and the only way we can really know that you understand the implications of your decisions is if you prove it. Until then, we're not moving forward. Scene, we're turning and walking away. Where once there had been a hope of reconciliation, Alan Berg once observed. Kody's angry words were intended to hurt, but his painful statements can only have exposed the delicacy of the family. The atmosphere was so thick with conflict that I could hardly bear. Kody's mother continued, though Kody's speech was intended to heal. Instead, fans responded immediately on the internet. Footage of the fight was posted all over social media, and people cheered for Christine and David for standing up to Kody. While some people were lauding them for being brave enough to speak out, others were having heated arguments about whether or not Kody's apology was true, or simply a repeating offense. What made this moment so interesting wasn't just the argument. It was the reality of it. Unlike television drama, this argument felt like it was really taking place. The emotions felt real, the consequences felt real, and they could be seen. This quote suggests that what made this particular situation interesting was not just the argument taking place, but also the reality of it. Unlike television, this argument felt like it was really taking place. This means that everything felt very real. The emotions felt real, the consequences felt real, and they could be. That apology that took everyone by storm wasn't just about Kody, but about the dynamics between Brown family members. The dynamics were such that everyone, especially Christine and David, had stopped allowing things to repeat themselves without taking action against them. The family had taken charge of the situation, and Kody couldn't ignore the boundaries they had set. Fans were not just watching for enjoyment, but for educational purposes too. By this point in the confrontation, there could no longer be any doubt that his words of forgiveness had fallen flat, and that Kody's apology had failed. Because instead of making Christine and David feel better, his words had simply pushed them farther away. And now they were firmly in charge of this confrontation. This is a moment that all of TGIT's viewers would never forget, and for good reason. You can't fix everything in an instant. The cameras caught every detail. Kody, Christine, or David could have said. Kody's loss of confidence, Christine's unwavering stare, David's iron determination. But every action, every pause, every deep breath would go on to be replayed, picked apart, and picked over again and again by fans for seasons to come. It wasn't just a botched apology. It was a turning point, a pivotal moment that changed family dynamics and reminded everyone watching that some apologies require a lot more than actual contrition. While the episode drew to a close, audiences were left with a reaction of shock, amazement, and anticipation for what was to come next. What would Kody do in the wake of these events? Could the damage be repaired? Or would this be a premonition of further conflict that goes on? One thing was certain in this episode. In the Brown family, deeds are more important than words. Kody's failed apology will go down in history, among the most dramatic moments in the history of sister wives, encapsulating the emotions, conflicts, and realities that make this family so entertaining to observe. It took Kody far too long to realize that his apology had actually spiraled out of control. When he witnessed Christine and David standing up for themselves with unflinching resolve. It took an ugly and awkward showdown and quickly turned into one of the most dreadful confrontations that have ever occurred in the history of sister wives. Kody was still reeling from the shock of having been outright rejected from his well-crafted apology when he tried to regain control. He took a deep breath to try to continue speaking. I just want us to move forward, he stuttered. But Christine had other plans. In a calm and commanding voice, she sliced through the tension. Kody, it isn't just saying something like that. You think words alone can fix all the pain and the mistrust and all the ways in which you've disappointed us. We aren't blind to all of your history. We've lived it. David, standing strongly beside his sister, emphasized the issue accurately. We're finished playing a game of these troubles being resolved by a simple apology. If you want to make it right, you need to prove it. The actions speak louder than the words, Kody. You've consistently shown in the past the discrepancy between your words and actions. For a moment, Kody froze, and then he felt the weight of their stance sink in. This was not a room where empty statements or weak apologies would be taken. He was being held accountable by Christine and David right before the cameras, and it was nothing short of electrifying. We've given you chance after chance, Kody, Christine went on, her voice unswerving. We've tried to move forward in spite of all the errors, and it becomes obvious that talking is no longer going to solve this problem. You've got to recognize how your actions impact us and the family, and you've got to treat us with respect and start to do differently. Because right now, nothing changes. David leaned forward just enough to make sure he got his point across. And we're not just talking about little things here. We're talking about choices that have repercussions for all of us. Financial, emotional, and relationship-wise. We've been dealing with the aftermath of what you've decided for years now, and it's time you faced it. The room was thick with tension, a combination of conflict, disappointment, and emotion. Kody's attempts to interject were met with resounding silence or flat rejection. Every move Kody made seemed to solidify the power struggle, the acknowledgement that Christine and David were now in control of this conflict. It has made this showdown especially compelling for a watching audience because it has been clear that a power dynamic shift has taken place. Kody has been used to being in a position of power within a family setting. Christine and David are making it very clear that power isn't an absolute concept in a relationship, that respect has to be earned. They are making a point about a failed apology. It is apparent that Christine's words were even more significant in this context, since she managed to explain what all of their fans had secretly known for years. Kody, you can't just expect forgiveness because you said the right words. You have to demonstrate an understanding, consistency, and change. We're not kids who are waiting for your stamp of approval. We're adults in this family, and we deserve to be heard, valued, and respected. David's face was set, and his words underscored the seriousness of the situation. It's not just about the apology. It's about accountability and the patterns we keep that have been hurting us. We're not here to break the family apart, but we're here protecting what is most important. And we're not going to have that reality dictated to us by empty words. Kody's desperate attempts to fix things began. He shifted his position in his chair, cast his eyes downward, and struggled with his apology. I never had any intention of hurting anyone. I believe I was doing what was best for us. I just want us to be happy together. Christine's expression was one of shock and defiance. Happiness has nothing to do with what you want. It has everything to do with what happens because of what you do. You must understand the consequence, Kody. It isn't what you say. It isn't even about earning our trust. David remained steadfast in his stance. You've been given chances to correct this issue. You've been given chances to repair it. And here we are, having to repeat this same cycle. This has to stop. If it's truly a relationship that you want to repair, there's going to be effort required. It was a raw, emotional, and for the viewer, completely engrossing confrontation. It was all caught on camera. Kody's waning confidence, Christine's accusing glance, and David's steadfast calmness. It was all a testament to the fact that this family was undergoing a metamorphosis, one in which the values of accountability and respect became, rather than nice ideas, mandates. Social media exploded immediately following the episode's airing. Viewers praised Christine and David for being so brave, referring to their showdown as one of the most intense, honest moments in Sister Wives history. People shared their reactions on social media, appreciating how much courage was required for the couple to stand up to Kody for his patterns of behavior. Memes, takeaways, and arguments began flying through cyberspace, making this showdown go viral. The significance of this particular moment lies in its reality. Unlike drama on television where people speak with script lines, this is reality. The feelings are real, the stakes are high, and consequences can already be seen. The failed apology of Kody didn't just show him where he is going wrong, but also brought to light the changing dynamics of the family. The increasing autonomy of Christine and David was apparent. This was the turning point for the family. They were no longer content with the way the patterns were allowed to play out. They had taken charge of their narrative and were now expressing their demands and expectations. Kody was left with no option but to consider the repercussions for his mistakes when confronted with the reality of their demands. Christine asserted, "It has everything to do with clarity, accountability, and respect. If you genuinely have feelings for this family, then you will express them through your actions, and not just words." David nodded in agreement, echoing her sentiments. "We love this family, and we want it to succeed. But we will not let empty apologies shape the direction of our future. Change must occur, and it must begin with realizing what the consequences of your behavior are and following through." For Kody, there was no doubt about the reality of the situation. Because the apology he had hoped would somehow level things out had failed, and more than that, had revealed the effects of ongoing errors and the increasing independence of Christine and David. This was more than an uncomfortable incident, a wake-up call. Fans living vicariously through their screens couldn't help but be captivated. Social media lit up with posts hailing Christine and David's courage and truth. Some fans took pity on Kody and realized just how difficult it has to be to corral such a big and complicated brood. However, others took immense satisfaction in seeing Kody held accountable. Video clips of the exchange quickly began to spread and took their place among Sister Wives' most viewed events. This episode was a wake-up call in realizing the fact that mere words are not enough in mending a damaged trust. The efforts made by Christine and David proved the fact that it is respect, accountability, and hard work on which every relation is based. The failed apology made by Kody proved a lesson in itself for the Brown family as well as the audience. The Brown family faced a very rough time when the news of Christine and David's disagreement went to the press. Christine apologized to David in front of the media. Christine revealed the fact that she had already confronted. As the episode was winding down, the feeling of tension remained in the air. The dynamics of this family had changed, and one could clearly see that this disagreement was only the beginning of further repercussions to come. Christine and David had stepped up to address this problem, And now a new standard is being set for accountability and communication. Kody was left to think and realize that he is going to have to do more than speak to win back his wife's trust. This confrontation wasn't just good TV. It was also a primer in what it means to be responsible, to communicate, and to watch power shifts in a family dynamic. Kody and David had shown that to stand up for oneself, to demand respect, to draw those lines, is to see major change, even in a family dynamic with many levels to probe. With the completion of this confrontation, it became apparent that nothing would ever be the same again for this family. Kody's apology had not gotten through to his wives, but his confrontation with Kody and David had given them their independence and changed the family dynamic for good. This confrontation has become an essential must-see TV, viral confrontation, and one of the most interesting ways to see accountability in relationships in action for those who chose to watch Sun-Kissed Mama. The fight was over, while its effects were in no way done. Kody Brown tried to do an apology that would get across how much he truly cared, only for it to be flatly refused by Kody and David in a confrontation that shook not only the family, but audiences in front of screens across a nation. The conflict didn't just conclude with a room full of tension. It created a ripple effect on social media platforms, stirring heated discussions among fans. While putting the Brown family in a make-or-break point in their long-standing family saga. Just after this confrontation, the cameras caught Kody sitting in silence, with looks of frustration and reflection on his face. However, with the presence of Kody, with an air of stoic authority, and David with his shield of protection around him, it was apparent that this moment would be one of definition. The apology that Kody thought would heal all wounds had rather brought all the wounds of yesterday and all previous mistakes to light. It was apparent that words would no longer be enough. The audience at home reacted quickly. The overload of clips on social media sites like Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok was explosive. On Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, the audience passionately discussed the same questions over and over again. Was Kody truly sorry for his actions, or just another case of the same old empty apologies being repeatedly replayed? Social media exploded into a frenzy of memes, hot takes, and chatter as the very episode became a global phenomenon in a shockingly short time. YouTube comments rolled in, too. Viewers were impressed with the decisiveness of Kody and David. Finally, someone is telling Kody what needs to be told, posted one commenter. Another viewer wrote, "This is why we love Kody and David. They are not intimidated to say what needs to be said, even when the message isn't what people want to hear." Others pitied Kody, knowing the enormous pressure he must be under in being the leader of his complicated brood. There was one feeling, however, that was universal in the comments, and that was that this was one confrontation that would never be forgotten. What was happening behind the scenes was revealed through sources indicating strongly that the impact of the altercation was significant on the dynamics of the family. Kody was supposedly taking days to process the message of his apology being rejected, coming to a conclusion regarding the kind of changes that will have to be implemented. Kody and David, on the other hand, experienced a degree of relief as well as empowerment, realizing the effectiveness of their message regarding boundaries and expectations being conveyed. The episode also explored the complexities of emotions present in the Brown family. The concept of polygamy is itself complex because there are many personalities, needs, and demands that are intricately woven together. For Kody Brown, dealing with such complexities hasn't been very easy. However, the argument between Kody and David was also a wake-up call for him to remember that leadership is not just about having authority, but also about earning respect and accountability. Viewers who were longtime fans of the show knew the significance of the moment. They had been watching the cycle of events repeat itself for a number of years, apologies and the same wrongs being repeated. The tension beneath the surface. However, this time, Christine and David were not going to let history repeat itself. Their audacity was a sign that, even in a polygamous society where a strong male dominates, boundaries and accountability will not be compromised. The drama settled beyond the boundaries of their private life. It continued on social media for days, as fans picked apart every word, gesture, and facial expression. Some fans focused on the emotional strength it takes to stand up to Kody, pointing out that both of them put their own relationship at risk in order to maintain their rights in their family dynamic. Others wondered whether a reconciliation between Kody and his wives could be possible. The weeks following the incident saw the Brown family communicating among themselves, trying to make sense of this shift in dynamics among them. Kody had to come to terms with the fact that his errors had had actual repercussions, which could only be remedied with actions, not mere assurances. Meanwhile, the stand Christy and David took ensured that the page had indeed been turned this time around. This episode has also stirred another round of discussion amongst fans of Temptation, Bad Girls Club, with people concerned with the issue of accountability and communication in relationships. Fans have been able to identify with Christine and David's convictions of action speaking louder than words, especially in situations involving broken trust. Hosts on internet forums explored the issue of boundaries and respect during relationship interactions. Kody's experience was a humbling one. The fact that his attempted apology fell flat forced him to think deeply on his place in his family and the end results of his actions and decisions. It has been reported that he is starting to realize why apologies, and not just apologies that are verbalized, are an essential part of his role now, not only as a husband, but also as a father to his family. While this was going on, the empowerment that came out of the situation for Christine and David was immense. They realized that the only way for a relationship, to include the relationship between Kody and his wives, to be healthy was for autonomy, respect, and communication to be part of the relationship. They now knew that the message being sent not only to Kody but to the world was that respect had to be earned and that mistakes repeated carried consequences. The episode also raised questions from fans regarding what might happen in the long run regarding changes that might or might not occur within the Brown family. Would Kody be able to adjust and perhaps change his way of doing things? Would things continue with Christine and David being strong and assertive in their dealings with Kody? Social media circles continued to be abuzz with activities as people continued to share clips, analysis, and opinions about it. YouTube videos about the confrontation received millions of views, while others on TikTok created reaction videos out of it. Hashtags about the showdown trended on social media for days, adding to the view that it was a viral event. The showdown was no longer on the cover of the television program, but a topic of discussion on reality television shows and among Sister Wives fans. One of the most interesting things about what followed was how it highlighted the changing dynamics of the relationship between Christine and David. Over the years, it had been common to see the side of Christine's character that was frustrated, often in more private ways, and lacking the strength and confidence displayed here. The role of David in relationship to her demonstrated again that it takes collaboration in complicated family relationships. Kody's failure to save his apology is also a learning experience about the power of timeliness, authenticity, and follow-through. Empty words, even if genuine, can do little to mend years of broken trust. This is precisely what the fans realized and deliberated over online, many praying for Kody to take this as a learning experience and change for the better in future episodes. As the credits ended on the episode, fans were left with mixed reactions of shock and amazement. Shock from the events of this showdown, amazement from the bravery of Christine and David, and amazement from wondering what would eventually happen to the members of the Brown family. The truth remains that things have changed and will continue to impact the series in the coming months and possibly years. What has also served as a further reinforcement of a key message for the viewing public has been the importance of accountability. What has come across through the dedication of Christine and David to boundaries, respect, and follow-through has been a message universally recognized, independent of reality television programming. Responsibility. For Kody, this encounter served as a highlight revelation incident, a time to remember that being a leader within a family means more than last names suppose authority, motivation, and commitment. Indeed, it means hearing, respecting, acknowledging people, and doing it all in a manner that takes into consideration the needs of every client. This could be done through respecting every member of a family. For Christine and David, it could be a time of empowerment. While fans are still abuzz about the encounter, it is an absolute viewing experience that lends itself to capturing the raw emotions and complexities of the Brown family. The failed apology, the forceful blowback, and then the fallout that follows provide one compelling and even enlightening tale that speaks of accountability, respect, and then the difficulties of maintaining a relationship that is under such intense observation. In the long run, it is left for viewers to remember that apologies alone do not suffice. It requires Christine and David's behavior to illustrate this factor, while Kody's reflection shows that there is still an ongoing process of rebuilding and restoring trust. This is one of those moments that Sister Wives fans will remember for years to come as one of the drama-filled and revealing moments from its history. A type of showdown that not just entertained fans, but also brought about valuable discussions on accountability and human relationships.